All right, I see people are wandering in. If you can hear the sound of my voice, do something that would convince me of it. Like raise a hand if you can hear me. Yes, thank you, Anne. Just want to make sure. All right. We'll give it a minute. I think a bus of people is about to pull up. All right. I think it's close enough. So welcome. What are we talking about today? Well, probably we're going to be talking about how to create a plan for 2021 to make it a big year, a successful year. As Yogi Berra said, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else, right? And we certainly wouldn't want that. And there are a lot of ways of approaching this. I shared with you a spreadsheet. If you're not in the spreadsheets, I'm sorry, you could do this with a piece of paper and a stubby pencil. I felt like modifying some spreadsheets that I had collected over the years. If you like spreadsheets, you'll understand my mental problems. But anyhow, it's a way of analyzing and creating a plan. Now, to start with, there's a guy named Simon Sinek who wrote a book called The Start With Why. And one of the things you might want to contemplate before we begin the exercise is, why are you in real estate, right? What is it that you want to get from real estate? Now, that could be expressed in many different ways. To some people, it's I want to help people. I've had people say, I want to get divorced. I want to move out. I want to quit my job. There are a lot of reasons, right, that people are in real estate. And if you could think about what amount of money net would you need, want, desire to make in order to accomplish what you would like to accomplish? So it's not just paying our expenses every month and paying them annually. Do you want to invest in property? Would you like to buy income property? Would you like to be putting aside savings? So if you're looking at, I spend, let's say, $100,000 a year, right? Let's say that's the number you want. And you also might want to be making enough money that you could invest it so that at some point you wouldn't have to work to make $100,000 a year. And then there may be debts and other things. So you realize that it might be more like 250 or 300,000 would give me enough money for my current lifestyle, as well as to have money to invest in that sort of thing, right? So you're going to need to come up with that particular amount, right? That's one of the things I can't do for you. Right. So let's go through. I think you'll see where I'm going with this, right? So let's go through what this worksheet looks like. And I started with what would be the net amount of income somebody might like to make. And this is just an example from something I did before. It's designed for you to put in your own numbers. You could use a paper and a pencil and a calculator if you're afraid of spreadsheets. But 300,000 was the number that I had put in before, but we could start with just about any number. Now, we're talking about before paying company dollars and any other kinds of expenses, right? Before. Right, so I'll leave it with this because I'm happy with these numbers. Let's say your gross commission would be $300,000. Right, now how many transactions is that going to take for you to gross $300,000? Well, let's see. Now, the next question is, does the company you work at have what's called a company dollar cap? Right, that's what that line would be. Now I worked at Keller Williams and they have a cap. It depends upon which office you're at, how much it is. Some of the offices I worked at, it was 33,000, right? Some of them are higher. What that means is that in a year, you would pay them a maximum of that amount. There are other companies. There's another company, one that I'm affiliated with, that it's possible to have a cap as low as $8,000, right? Which would mean that's the maximum amount that you would be paying in any given year to the company. Now, if you're listening to me and saying, I don't know what a cap is, then maybe we should talk, right? Now, some people don't really care about this because they're not that motivated to sell that much real estate and they're not going to cap. It doesn't really matter. So we're going to leave that blank for now. All right. So now the question is, what percentage of your business do you expect to be buyers or sellers? Now, a lot of times there's a transition from new agents working a lot with buyers at the beginning and then working with sellers later on. It would be better to have more listings than buyers, right? Now that the market varies right now, of course, listings might be stronger than buyers because we're in such a hot market. That market could change. It's nice to have a balanced market. I put in 60% listing and 40% buyers. Again, you can change the numbers and everything changes. Right. So what that would mean is, yes, thank you. What that would mean is that if 60% of our business was generating from listings, 180,000 of the 300,000 in gross income would come from listings, and 120,000 would come from buyers. Right. So then they are asking, what is the average? If we take a listing, what is our average list price? Now that could be different from our average sales price. It, of course, varies depending upon the kind of market you're looking at. I put in $1 million because it's a nice round number, right? Again, your number may vary. And then is the sales price for typically, where this is getting at, if you listed a home for $1 million, are you going to sell it for a little bit more? Are you going to sell it for a little bit less? Are your sales where you represent buyers at a different price point than the listings that you are taking, right? You understand if your typical sale is 800,000, but your typical listing is $1 million, we would put in those numbers. Now the question is, and I'm just sticking with $1 million just for fun, what would be the average commission that you would receive? So let's assume it's 2.5%. Now, if you're giving people rebates and kickbacks and discounts and things like that, you would need to factor this in. Do you typically get 2.5 or 3% when you list a home? Do you get 2.5 or 3% when you sell a home? What is your average? Again, that might vary. You need to change the numbers. What that gives us is what our average gross commission is, which is a simple number. If you're dealing with 2.5% of $1 million, it's $25,000. Now, what is your commission split? Right now, depending upon where you are, right? Let's say you're at an office where you're being paid 70-30 on your first few transactions, or just 70-30. You would put that in there, right? And then it calculates how much you're going to get. There are other, there's a sort of a continuum, right? There are other models where you could get paid 80-20. There's a lot of different models, but what we want to know is roughly what would your commission be? 70%, why not? You know, it also could be, depending on where you are, 80%, right? I'm going to just leave that for that now. Now, what this calculates is how much, did that do it right? Let me just see. Yeah, it did it right. I'm sometimes amazed that when I do it, it works. You know, I don't know. So what that would mean, if there's a $25,000 gross commission and you were on an 80-20 split, as an example, 5,000 of the 25,000 would go to the company dollar, right? And you would get, well, what's ever left over. I didn't actually calculate that, but you could probably do that math on your head. I could add that in. So where does that leave us? Well, we're going to need, given a $1 million price point and all of those numbers, 7 listings and 5 buyers in order to earn $300,000 in gross commission income. Now, if you add those two together, what we're talking about is 12 transactions. Right. And by the way, one simple way to like ignore all this is to simply say, how about my goal is going to sell one house a month? How about that? One house a month. That's all we ask, is that you sell one lousy house a month. That's all. But if you had 7 listings and you had 5 buyers, then, you know, that would be 12. But we need to look at, well, if we do all the listings sell in this market, let's say that 95% of all the listings that we take are actually going to sell. Do all of your buyers buy? Does every buyer that you get into an agreement with and you're out there showing them homes and writing offers, do they all buy? Well, they don't all buy. And again, these are just some sample numbers to begin with, but you understand it may be that we need slightly more buyers because they don't always buy. Right? It's a tough market. So then we would need 8 listings and we would need 6 buyers in order to have a buffer, right? Because some of the listings may not sell. Right? There's got to be something really wrong in this market, but they might. The market, by the way, can change, and not every buyer is going to buy. Now, over time, if you're new at this is like, you know, I don't even know what numbers to put in. You can copy mine just for fun. But after a while, you can start to check your own numbers, right? And you say, well, wow, in the last year, I had 10 buyers that wanted to buy and only 4 of them bought, right? I have a 40% conversion rate. Now, one of the things that exercise is going to do is open up opportunities for improvement. Right, because if maybe you need to have a better conversation with the buyers, you might need to be more selective. But does everybody, you see where I am right now? All right. Now, what that comes out to be is 0.6 sellers a month and 0.5 buyers a month on average. Right. Originally, this was designed for a market where you would need to take a lot of listings and have a lot of buyers to make any money. Now, the percent list and buyer appointment that you get. Now, what this question is that if you go on 10 listing appointments, how many listings are you likely to get? And if you have 10 buyer consultations, how many of those buyers are likely to buy? Now, if this is just the beginning of a process, because the better you get at listing appointments and buyer consultations, the better that percentage will be. If you have a 25% conversion rate because you're not very good at it, then you're going to need a lot more appointments in order to reach your goals. If you have a good buyer consultation and a good listing presentation such that people actually want to work with you, and you're doing better than, you know, you're doing 75%, 3 out of 4 of the people you work with are like, yeah, you're the one, then we would put that in. And one of the reasons to have a mentor or a coach or somebody helping you is that they might be able to help you with those conversations. But you understand this is going to tell us how many appointments we're going to need. So what the total is, and I don't know if that number really looks right, but if we need, we're going to need, I don't think that number looks right. I may have to check my numbers. So this is percent listing at your appointment. So I don't know. You see, what I would say is this is B18 divided by B20. That should be the right number. All right. So basically, I'm going to have to look at that. But let me just 75%. That's probably right. Is that true? So if we had, hope you guys don't mind that I'm doing this. If we needed to have 8 appointments and we're only closing 0.75 of them, we need to, that's about right. My goodness, the numbers are much better at 75% than 50% or 20%. You understand, if only half of our buyers are buying, we need to have 12 buyer appointments, right? If we're not good at this at all and we're only getting 25% of the people, oops, did I screw up? Let me just make that. If we're 0.25, if we're only getting 25%, you understand now we need like 24 appointments. All right, so what we want to do is to work on our appointment setting of our appointment ability. Right? So if you're, I hope everybody sees where I'm going with this. Let's make it something that's a little more challenging. Let's say your conversion rate is 50%. Right? Half of the people you meet with want to work with you, and half of them don't. Right now, what that's going to mean is you're going to need 1.3 plus 1, 2.3 appointments, 15 listing appointments, and 12 buyer appointments, which means we're not talking about even one appointment a week, right? You understand, if you add the 15 and the 12 together, you get 27. If you had one appointment a week and you took a month off, that would be 48 appointments. Right? I'm just saying that's not a lot of appointments, right? At one a week, you're not even doing one a week. So what we want to do is to find out how many appointments we need, because appointments are probably one of the most important metrics. Right, because that's the step that has to come before we actually are writing contracts and making money. So what would our closed volume look like? We would need 7 million, 7.2 in listings and 4.8, right? In terms of given that the commission and all of that. So what this comes out and B16 and B16. So this equals. If I'm not, did I do that right? Equals that plus that. I think somehow the numbers look messy to me. Oh, anyhow, I'm going to let it go with this. So if 8 and 6 is 14, and I don't know why it's not adding it together. But let me just see if I can make it add together. I'll send you guys a revision of this if you'd like. This one. How about that? And that one. There we go. There we go. All right. For $1, I'll send you a revision, but you could just write it on the side too. So 14 transactions. We're going to need about $12 million in volume. I don't know what's happening with this number down here, but these numbers all look cool to me. $300,000 would be the gross commission income. Now, if your how much is going to be paid in company dollar would depend on whether or not you had a cap, and I didn't really calculate that. I was working on the spreadsheet, let's just say. But let's say you're on what split were we using as an example? An 80-20 split. So if you had 300,000 times 0.20 is $60,000, right? And I'm just going to put this in. I'll make it look prettier later. Now, this is where the cap comes up. So if you were just on a straight split like that, you'd be paying the company $60,000. It's possible to go someplace where that could be cut in half, or it could be a lot lower. But we're just going to let that ride for right now. Right now, your income. You get to watch me do this in real time. That wasn't my intention, but your income then would be $240,000, right, before expenses. And it's obvious I didn't add them all up yet, but this is just a work in progress, right? Spreadsheets. So let's talk for a moment. If we did 14 transactions, we could have some fall through. We'd be doing, the volume would be higher than that. It would be 14 million, but we don't really need to worry about that right now. Not all my things are auto calculating, but we would, if we did 14 transactions, we could lose a few, still gross $300,000, pay the company 60 or 30 or whatever, and end up with $240,000 before expenses. So what are our expenses? Now, some of this again, I'm still sort of working on this. A screenshot when I'm done might be better, but what are your realtor dues? Now, when you first join, there's like some added fees and things like that. But let's just say, I think I paid $675 or $650, something like that, for my next year's board membership. And so it calculates it by the monthly amount, just because some things are monthly and some are not. How much is the MLS? Well, that of course also can vary a little bit if you're paying them quarterly or semi-annually or annually. I think it's about $845 when I pay them annually. Equipment, what that might be is, for example, some people would add the cost of their cell phone, right? And because they're primarily using it for business, and they would like that to be covered by their real estate activities, there's a $30 a month fee just to have the lockbox key electronically, the super key subscription. I add those things together, I come up with about $90 a month. So that means there's $1,080 in cell phone bills and the super key. Now, the office that you work at, does it have a monthly fee or not? Now, the divide is that there are offices that I'm affiliated with where there are no monthly fees, right? No monthly fees. And that, of course, has the advantage in that, well, there's no monthly fees. However, technology and things like that, you kind of get what you pay for. And if you're not into it, you don't need it, then, that option might be good for you. But if you're serious about selling real estate and you want all the tools and the systems and all that kind of stuff, that typically involves joining an office perhaps that has it. Let's say I'm at the no monthly fee office and I just want to get the technology that I need. How much would that cost me to buy it off the shelf from some company? And the answer is about $100 a month, right? So you could get a website and a customer relationship management program that's nice and functions well and looks cool for $100 a month, right? You could join a company that provides that, right? Some of them do that for $85 a month. Some offices charge you $200 a month, some $300 a month. The question is, how much is your company charging you? Now, even at $85 a month, which is very low for we have a lot of technology and you have access to it fee, that's still $1,020 a year, right? If you're buying it, you get the idea. If you're paying $100 a month to buy it yourself, that's $1,200 a year. If I don't need that stuff, then you could leave that blank, right? But typically, you're either don't have technology. You have a phone, and the phone has a calendar, and there's Gmail, and you can do a lot of stuff just with that. But an integrated website customer relationship management system, that's going to cost something, right? Either you join an office that provides it, or you buy it yourself, or you don't have it. Are you renting office space? Now, in some of the companies that you might pay a couple $100 a month to, that doesn't even include a workstation, a private workstation. It may not include it certainly doesn't include a private office. Those are also fees that are sometimes added onto that. It raises the question, of course, if we're not going into the office, why are you paying for it? I don't know. Lead generation, that also I could have just called marketing and lead generation. How about that? People like marketing better. And if everybody that registered, when I finish tweaking it, I'll send you a copy. I think Dimitri's on the line. If in a few minutes he could send me one back that's fixed probably. But are you going to spend any money on marketing? Are you going to run Facebook ads? Are you going to be geographically farming? Are you going to, are you going to do anything? Now, can you sell real estate without spending money on farming and ads and things like that? The answer is yes, right? Because it doesn't cost anything to call people and talk to people, and there are things you could do. I would say that oftentimes agents that are active and relatively successful are spending between $300 to $500 a month, oftentimes on different marketing. Now, it's better for you to be making money before you start doing this, but I'm just saying you might need to put in a dollar amount, and it could just be $50 a month, but I put in 100 just as yours might be different. Auto insurance, if it's, you're supposed to upgrade your insurance so that it's compliant. Other technology, I don't know, are you going to buy computers and things like that? Do you have a VA? But even with just $100 for marketing and lead generation, these fees, given the, and remember, I'm including the super key and a cell phone bill, and $100 for lead generation, but it's $5,660 a year, or almost $500 a month. If you asked me how much does a real estate agent who's engaged and spend a month in all the different kinds of fees that are connected with it, it's about $500 a month is what I would say. Right now, some of these things are annually and they're prorated, but $5,660, it would be the amount. So if our total operating expenses, and I don't even know what that, I don't need that, are $5,600, and I haven't added it all up, but this would be, should I do this now? I don't know. I'll do that later. But you get the idea. If you took the 240,000 and we subtracted 5,660, that would be your net income after paying commission splits, company dollars, and expenses. That's what it would look like from 14 transactions. That's what it would look like at $1 million price point, 234,000. So I guess the first question is, can you live on that, right? Could you live on that? I know you'll have to cut back some, but you get the idea. So real estate, can be an expensive hobby. However, in some ways, it's an inexpensive business, in that most businesses, the amount of money you'd have to be spending and all that is way higher. So one way to what we need in order to move forward with our plan, whether you want to do the numbers in a somewhat sophisticated way like this, or you just want to pick a number, we need a number. Like, how many transactions is your goal to close next year, right? A number. Now, if you're saying, I don't know, I'm really new, I have no idea, how would I know? Just pick something, right? You can change it later. It's not like we're going to put your picture on our Facebook page with, you making fun of you for not reaching your goal. I mean, we do that, but that shouldn't bother you. But you understand, pick a number, right? And the number could be 14, it could be 12. I'm going to go with 12 because people that are high driver types and don't like spreadsheets, how about one transaction a month? How about that? How about one a month? I think most of you would be happy. Many of you would be happy with one a month. Right? I'd be happy with one a month. So now the question is, so that's all of that was all based upon, I see I have some weird stuff down there. If we click on the next tab, it says contacts. And I've already filled some of this out. And the idea now is, okay, let's say our goal is to do 12 transactions, right? And let's see how well have I done this one. There we go. Why not? I put in 14, right? Just to make it consistent with what we had before. Because if we want to close transactions, do you understand, we might need 14. But we're going to go with 14, right? Close transactions. I don't know. Why not? I know I was doing 12, but I'll go back to 12. I actually do kind of know what I'm doing. It just may not look like that. So, all right. In order for us to close a transaction, we're going to have conversations with people. Who are we going to have conversations with? Well, there's two kinds of people. There's the people that you know, and then there's the people that you don't know. One of the most valuable assets that a real estate agent has is this, right? And it's not because you can make phone calls and text people, although you can, and that's valuable. It's because of the names and the phone numbers and the contact information that's in it, right? That is your sphere. SOI stands for, excuse me, Sphere of influence, sometimes it's COI for center of influence. It's the people you already know. Now, the question is that if you know 100 people and you're in communication with them, how many of them, how many real estate transactions are you likely to get for knowing those people? Now, I've seen lots of different numbers. It depends on a lot of different things, but let's say you need to have 20 names, 20 people that you know that you're talking to in order to close one transaction a year. All right, 20. Now, you have to understand that if you have a database of 100 people, 90 out of those 100 people are unlikely to be doing anything this year. Of course, that also means that 10 of them are, right? Plus, the people that they know might be interested in buying or selling or investing in real estate, but 90% of them probably aren't this year. But let's say you need to know 20 people before you actually get them or somebody that they know that they refer you to. So if you wanted to do 12 transactions just from people you know, you would need to have 240 people in your I know these people database. See, another way to look at that group is, in a sense, this isn't a large number, this is a gross number, but we actually don't need that many. You understand? And we're going to talk about ways of finding these people, making the business plan a little more specific. But the goal here really is to get 10 people out of all of our contacts, 10 people that are willing to refer 2 people each year to us. 10 people that refer 2 people a year. And then maybe another 30 that refer 1 person a year to us. How many referrals is that? For those of you that have been keeping up with me while I'm doing my math, that's 50. Out of how many people? 40. Right? And it's the question is getting the right 40. And you might need to start with 240 before you find the right 40. But let's say I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody. So can you still make money in real estate? The answer is yes. Right? If you were to look at the people you know versus the people you don't know, and you ask the question, which one is the larger group? It's the people you don't know, right? Because there's a lot more of them. But let's say you're going to need to talk to 100 people. Now, and I've seen other people say it's 50. I've seen people say it's 150, but let's just say 100 people. You need to have 100 conversations with people about buying, selling, or investing in real estate in order to get somebody that buys, sells, or invests. That means you're going to need 1,200 of those people if you want to do 12 transactions just from them, right? That means you need 1,200 of them, 100, adding 100 a month, right? Now, you could combine the two and say, well, I think that most of my business is going to come from the people I already know, let's say 60%. And then the rest of it is going to come from the people I don't know. So if 60% is coming from the people we know, you're going and you want to, that would be 7 transactions. And that means you're going to need eventually about 1,037 people. You're in your database of people that you have met or communicated with and that you're following up on. If you're talking about people you don't know, and how many of those contacts are you going to have to make? Well, if 40% of your business is coming from those people, that means 5 transactions. And at that ratio that I had, that's 480. I know the numbers look a little teensy bit off, it's a rounding error. But the bottom line, I'm just going to jump to it, is you're going to need, if you're doing this combined thing, 1,000 people in your database and adding 2,304 people, your total contacts is 3,341. So, all right, if you need, let's say, 3,400 contacts in order to close 12 transactions, how many people do you have in your database now? What's the gap, right? Is there a gap between where you need to be? There's a big gap. in this example. Now, you might say, well, I've got 500 people, I've got 200 people, I've got nobody, you can change that number. But I'm just saying, what about 100? Most people really do have, I mean, look at your phone. I mean, really, you know, there's more than 100 people there. So let's say our goal is in the next year, we're going to add 3,241 people into our database, right? And by the way, this involves not just adding them to the database, but doing something meaningful with them while they're there and following up with them. So how many are we going to need each month in order? We're going to have to add 270 people a month. How many would that be each week, assuming there are only 4 weeks in a month? There's actually 4.3, but just using 4 weeks in a month, we would need to do 68 every week, right? And if we're looking at 5 days a week that we're actually going to be doing it, it comes out to 14 a day, right? 14 a day. So if we talk to 14 people a day, connected with 14 people a day and put them into our database and followed up with them, and we did that 5 days a week, 4 weeks out of the month, and we did that for 12 months a year. You understand, if you do the math, you're getting a month off, right? Which I know is not a lot if you're in real estate, but you know, this is, got to buckle down, right? You get a month off. At 14 a day, we would be reaching that goal. And by the way, I've padded these numbers somewhat. You probably don't need that many people in order to do that many transactions. So the question is, do you have enough time to talk to 14 people every day? I know that sounds pretty tough. How long is a typical conversation? 6 minutes, 12 minutes? I don't know. So how many of you, and you could raise your hand just in front of the screen, not that I can see it, but just, you know, if you want to. How many of you would say you're a full-time real estate agent? I'm going to be a full-time real estate agent, right? You know, I know some people have raised their hands. So if you're a full-time real estate agent, how many hours a week does that mean, right? How many hours do you work each week? If you're a full-time agent, would you be working 40 hours a week? Would you be working, you know, what would that look like? Well, let's say you're working 40 hours, you're back, 40 hours a week, 40 hours a week. All right. I was having trouble with 40, my goodness. 40 hours a week. And I've got 60. That'll be, by the way, you'll get there quicker. But let's just start with 40 hours a week. Now, I'm assuming that at this point, you don't have a whole bunch of clients, right? You don't have a bunch of listing appointments coming up. You don't have a bunch of listings. You don't have a bunch of that. So if you don't have any active clients right now, what ought to be your goal? How about getting active clients? And would it be reasonable to expect? In other words, if you ask the question, what is the number one thing? What is the number one job that you have as a real estate sales professional? And I would say that job is to get clients. That's why it's called a salesperson's license. The sales is about getting clients. So let's say that you are willing to work a 40-hour work week. It would not be unreasonable to expect to spend 80% of your time getting business if you got no business now. So what would that look like? 80% of the focus on a 40-hour work week would be 32 hours a week. If we divide that by 5 days a week, we get 6.4 hours a day. We could round down to 6. So 6 hours a day is 80% of a 40-hour work week rounded down. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I lied when I raised my hand about full time. You know, I don't want to work 40 hours a week. That sounds tough. How about this? We'll make this easy for you. Let's just say your plan is to work 20 hours a week. 20 hours, right, on your real estate business. And 80% of that is going to be focused on getting leads, getting clients. That would be 16 hours a week. If we divide that by 5, we get 3.2 hours a day. The question is, if you committed to working to contacting people for 3 hours a day, would it be possible in those 3 hours for you to communicate with 14 people? Huh? You think you could do that? Could you make 14 contacts in 3 hours? And the answer is yeah. Right? You could actually make a lot more than that in 3 hours, right? And if you do the math, right, that's like, I don't know how many an hour, but you get the idea. It's not a lot, right? It's not a lot. Typically, you could talk to like a dozen people in an hour, right? So if you were, by the way, contacting 20 people a day, you'd notice how all these numbers would improve. So one number is how many transactions is in your goal, let's say 12. The next number is how many people a day does that require that you contact in order to reach that, right? Now, if you want, how about 20? Let's say you're really serious, 20, right? You're kind of serious, but not that serious, 10. By the way, let's say your number was 5, right? Is I only want to talk to 5 people a day, 5 days a week, right? So that's 25 people a week times 4 weeks is 100 people a month times 12 months is 1,200 people from 5 a day. And assuming that 90% of them aren't going to buy or sell real estate, but 10% of them are, that's 120 transactions just in those people. And let's say you're bad at this. And so those 120 transactions, 90% of them don't want to work with you. Only 10%, only 1 in 10 are willing to work with you. That's 12 transactions. That's from 5 a day, right? I'm just saying what you need is my goal is to contact so many people every week, every day, and that's a number we would need for your plan. All right, how are we doing? Isn't this fun? Are you guys just having lots of fun? I bet you are. So now, okay, that's all fine and good, but now the question is, well, who am I going to talk to, and what am I going to say, and how's all that going to work? So now we're talking about a plan. So the way the plan would typically work, we would start with our goal. Our goal is 12 transactions. Now, we could look at what we did before, but let's just say we're going to have 5 buyers. I know these aren't the exact same numbers as before. 5 buyers. Why is that so small? How about, I don't want it to be that small. All right. So 5 buyers and 7 sellers. Is that right? 6, that's 13. How about 6, 5, 6. What am I doing wrong? I'll stick with 7, and that's 12. That's 12. All right. So it's been a long morning. So the our goal is we want 5 buyers and 7 sellers. All right. So we have 3 priorities. One of them is we need to get buyers, and one of them is we need to get sellers. And the third priority that we need to focus on in our plan is the product, right? Because if we're in sales, we got to have a good product, right? What's the product? And the answer to that is it's you, right? You're the product. And so what we don't do in real estate as agents is we don't sell real estate. You need to understand that real estate agents do not sell real estate, right? Sellers sell real estate and buyers buy real estate agents. That's not what real estate, buyers buy real estate, but that's not what real estate agents do. What real estate agents are actually selling is a package of services to buyers and sellers to help them buy and sell and get what they want. So the question is, how good is your package of services? Right? If I said, give me 10 reasons why I should work with you when I sell my home, give me 10 reasons why I should let you help me buy a home or invest in property, do you have that? How good would you be at articulating and explaining to somebody what your package of services is and why they would want it? Because you understand, lead generation doesn't do us any good if we blow the appointments. Right? I mean, it doesn't, we keep getting appointments, but we don't know what to do. We don't have a value proposition. We don't have a listing presentation. We don't have a buyer consultation. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know what's happening in the market. We don't know what's happening on the news. We're not reading the news about real estate. The client knows more than we do about what's happening, right? They're paying more attention to what's going on in their neighborhood than we have. They know more than we do, right? You understand? That's a problem. It's a problem. So we want to decide how many buyers are going to come, we want, and how many sellers we're going to get, but then we're also going to need to work on the product. So now what we would be doing is saying, okay, buyers, how am I going to find buyers? Now, some of these may overlap, but somebody in your sphere of influence might be able to, maybe wanting to buy a house, may know somebody that wants to buy a house, sphere of influence. Now, it wouldn't hurt for us to, at some point, to think, well, how many of those 5 transactions am I going to get from that? But we'll let that go. In a more normal world, we'd be do open houses, right? We're not doing that right now, but that might be over, right? At some point, we may do them again, but I'm going to leave that off. There are different vendors, right, that we could work with that might know people that are interested in buying a house. Like people that there's a lot of them, financial planners and CPAs and loan agents and things like that. We could be doing stuff on social media. Now, all of these, by the way, would require that we would do more. In other words, we might come up with something else. Now, my suggestion at the beginning is to have at least 3 methods, right? You don't need 12, you don't need 100, I mean, just start with 3 and get good at those 3 before you start adding something else. Now, there was a study that was done of a group of real estate agents, a large group, that were all earning over $1 million a year in commission income. And what they found is that out of that group, the average number of things that they were doing to find clients was 12. However, 80% of their business came from 3 on average. So can you meet buyers on social media? This Saturday, I had a buyer consultation with a person from Google that I met through LinkedIn messaging. And we went through a buyer consultation. I've actually done a home buying seminar with one of their lender partners, which I was able to share with her afterwards. It was just an interesting appointment. At the end of our buyer consultation, she said, I hope this is not inappropriate, but would it be okay to ask you if you would be my agent when I buy a house? How adorable is that? How did now I have to admit I have some special software for doing this, and I've been doing it for a while, but I had a buyer consultation this weekend, a real one, from somebody that can afford to buy a house that I got through social media, right? So there could be a lot there. Like you could be looking for people on LinkedIn, you could be looking at Facebook, and there's Facebook groups and Facebook community pages and your Instagram account. There could be a lot more, right? Right now, we're just, coming up with an idea. And vendors would include loan agents and people that do, well, CPAs and financial planners. Loan agents, if you're looking for buyers, loan agents are people that you would like to meet because they're actually meeting people that are interested in buying or investing. So sellers. Okay, how would we find sellers? Well, our sphere of influence could also provide people that are interested in buying or selling. And by the way, vendors also. Now, it's probably a different group of vendors. 25% of the people that are having their house painted are doing it because they're planning on selling it. A lot of people, if you were going to sell your house, who would you be talking to? Would you talk to a landscaper, a house painter, a house cleaner, flooring contractors, kitchen remodelers, right? Would you talk to your CPA? Who would you talk to? And one of the things that we can do, not only to find buyers, but to get listings, is to identify those professional services that surround a real estate transaction and make networking arrangements with them. Right? I have videos on this. So, by the way, will those people call you back? If I call a plumber up and I say, hi, my name is Mike Devlin, I'm a real estate agent. I wanted to talk to you about, plumbing for my clients, do you think they're going to call me back? Well, yeah, they're going to call me back. Right? I'm a real estate agent. I might have people, I'm going to have people that are going to need a plumber. What else could we do? Well, we also could be doing social media. Right? We also could be doing farming. We could be doing expireds and for sale by owners and circle prospecting. There are actually, in a way, more ways of finding sellers than buyers. Right? But again, the goal would be to identify 3. And if you want to add something, because the first 3 here are the same as the ones for buyers, if you want to add something else, I'm just saying you want to become good at these things. See, my goal for vendors would be to arrange 2 appointments a day, virtual or phone, right? 5 days a week with the different vendors, 2 a day, 5 days a week, right? And the goal then in 4 weeks, you would have had 40 conversations with vendors, and maybe most of them aren't going to be helpful, maybe only 10%. Well, right? Maybe, right? If you, again, remember, if we could find 10 people that would refer 2 people a year to us, and these vendors, loan agents and others, are in a position to meet more than 2 people a year that are interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate. And we can easily find them. They're not hiding from us, the vendors, right? And we can communicate with them, and we could work together with them and maybe do things together. By the way, would do an investor workshop with a CPA or a financial planner, with a loan agent or somebody else that does those kind of loans. First time home buying seminars with loan agents. I've done, many of you have seen me do these. So we want to make a list. Now, what do we mean by the product? Well, how about market knowledge? So do you spend time every day reading articles about real estate? Do you have a feed of what's going on in the real estate news? Are you looking at the MLS to see if the active number of listings is going up or going down? Is the days on market going up or going down? Are you participating in the weekly realtor meetings where they sometimes talk about this and what's happening? How much do you know about what's going on in the real estate market? And if the answer is not that much, then maybe we want to, because eventually we're going to come up with a blocking of time. We might want to have to plan that you're going to spend 30 minutes, an hour, 45 minutes every day studying these things, right? Do you have a listing presentation? Do you have a buyer consultation, right? Do you have those things? Now, if you've been getting listings from people you already know or people you've worked with before, and all they really want you to do is come over and hang out and chat with them and then say, well, how much do you think I'm going to sell it for? And you tell them and they say, great, where do we sign? Right? Maybe you can say, I don't really need a listing presentation. But if you're out lead generating, prospecting, looking for new clients, you're going to find yourself in situations where they don't know you that well. And it's not a lot. I can remember going on an appointment in East San Jose where the owner, I was helping an agent with this one, and the owner had said, oh, by the way, I'm talking to you guys and 5 others. We were one of 6 that they were interviewing. And when we got there, the guy, the husband said, okay. He said, show me your presentation. Do it. Let's see it. How would you feel about that? Standing up, just getting up and giving somebody a listing presentation right there, right in front of them, everybody watching you, right? But yes, we did get that listing, by the way. I'm just saying, we did get that listing. But do you have one, right? Could you give one? And let the guy interrupt you and ask questions all the way through it. Do you have a buyer consultation? Do you know what you would do, what you would send them, what you would talk about, right? Do you have any of that stuff? So there's other training that you could be doing that's either online on the internet, right? If you've decided you want to do social media marketing and you want to work on LinkedIn for real estate, you think we would find anything if we went to YouTube or Google and we typed in LinkedIn marketing for real estate agents? What do you think? Do you think there'd anything would come up, you know? Or would we have skunked Google, right? They're like, gee, we have no idea, right? There'd be like thousands of ideas and plans and videos and samples and things like that. And I followed one of those and I got an appointment. You know, I'm just saying, you have to do something, right? So all of the Facebook advertising for real estate agents, Instagram for real estate agents, geographic farming for real estate agents, you get the idea. There's lots of available training. Do you attend any kind of training on a regular basis? Have you blocked out time for that? Now, once we've produced our list of our overall sketch of what we're going to do, now what we want to do is to take out a calendar. And the calendar would be something like either Google Calendar is what I use. You could create a calendar. In fact, I think what I did one just to start. So what was I doing? So this is like a blank Google Calendar. But what I'm suggesting is that you look and you say, all right. And by the way, when I was more regimented because I was going to other offices and things like that, I had my commutes in my calendar. When I was going to go to the gym and then I was going to drive, I had that in my calendar. I know. But let's say I was going to spend between 8 and 9 o'clock, and I'm going to call this lead preparation. And what I might do is I'm going to say, I want this to repeat daily, and I'm going to click on OK. Now, what do I do during lead preparation is I get the people that I'm going to be talking to, and I actually drop them in to my Google Calendar. So if I'm going to be talking to people, let's say for 3 hours, so these are, let's just call them conversations for fun. Right? I know that the word lead generation is scary to many people, but I'm going to call these conversations. And I'm going to also have it repeat daily. And I might change it to green, right? Just so it looks like money, you know, when I'm making the call. So what I would do is once I have, here's the people that I'm going to be calling today, in the description, in the Google Calendar, I'm going to copy and paste their names and the phone numbers. If I'm calling them, I'm going to paste that in. And if I have a note, whatever, I'm going to just paste it in the description. Why do I do that? It's because I'm lazy. And when I do that and I open up today's calendar, there in my, you know, Android phone are all of those names, and the phone numbers are hyperlinks, and I tap them into calls, I tap them in calls, I tap into calls. Right, so I can do that in the morning, get ready for all those different people, right, that I'm going to call. There might be, you know, we'll call this lunch and learn, because I know you guys are like really committed, right? So while you're lunching, you're also going to be watching a video on how to do something or participating in a class, right? You're going to be learning. What else might I want to do? Well, another thing in my schedule might be a social media, and I might be breaking that down, but that could include writing blog articles, making YouTube videos. In fact, I'm going to make that a little bit longer because I know you guys probably like social media better. So does everybody see where I'm going with that? Right. So now that doesn't mean that things don't come up. I drove to San Leandro yesterday to show a house, not a house, a building, a commercial property, and I went to a client's in Oakland to pick up a signed contract. for an escrow we just got into today. So things happen, right, where you go around. But what the goal is, remember, we were going to talk to 14 people a day, and we were going to do that 5 days a week, right? So if we're doing that, what we would want to do every week is say, okay, my goal for this week is to talk to, 40 people, 50 people, 60 people, whatever that number works out to be. And then what we want to do is track to see how many contacts did we actually make. Because if our goal was to talk to, let's say, 50 people this week and we only talked to 30, in order for us to make this up, we're going to have to be talking to more people later on, right? We want to know what that number is each day, each week, so that we know that we're on track. And so anyhow, if you have to drop something to replace it. And then there's times, obviously, appointments pop up and things like that. But I know that there's probably enough time to fit all of this in. You might want to set aside I would spend, if I were you, I would recommend going to the weekly association tour meeting, at least to listen to the last one I was on, which was yesterday morning. They were talking about what the new public health safety guidelines are and how that's going to affect real estate. You hear about things that are relevant to your business. They're going over what's happening in the market. You ought to be committing to doing that sort of stuff on a regular basis. All right. So I don't know if that was enough. Sorry about some of the spreadsheet fun, but you get the idea. You might want to think about what your goals are. And then from that, we could work backwards into a plan. The reason that agents don't make it oftentimes is it's about motivation. Remember, I started with the why are you doing this? Because working with buyers or working with sellers or working with investors, or in my case, working with real estate agents, the biggest thing is motivation. Right? There's legendary stories of agents that looked good, sounded good, talked good, and never did anything. And others that didn't look that good, didn't sound so good, didn't talk so good. You know, they're colorblind and they have a trick knee and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But they go ahead and sell a lot of homes, right? A lot of times it's because that group is they're way more motivated. So what about if you're a part-time agent? The question is, do you have 20 hours a week? So one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, how many hours a week do you have? By the way, if you're a part-time agent, in some ways, this is easier, not harder. And the reason it's easier is because you know you have limited time. Agents that don't have other jobs think they have all the time in the world to do stuff, which means they don't do stuff because they can always do it tomorrow. But then you don't do it tomorrow either. But the question is, if you're part-time, do you have 20 hours a week? Right? Do you? Right? Saturday, Sunday, do you have a couple hours every day, right? You understand, 20 hours a week. If you were to spend 5 hours, 1 hour a day, or even later in the day, but 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, that's 5 hours. You also could spend time on Saturday and Sunday. And maybe your beginning goal is a little bit less, right? But my plan for 3 hours a day, now this is not a part-time agent schedule. I have to admit that would be another session. But 20 hours, do you have 20 hours a week? Do you have 10 hours a week? Right? If you have 10 hours a week, assuming that in a 3-hour block, you could talk to 20 people and you're spending 10 hours a week and you're talking to 20, that's 200 people a week that you're talking to. You understand, it's the numbers might change, but it's still the numbers. And even at 10 hours a week, at 5 hours a week, you can start to be making a dent on this, right? And then it starts to snowball a little bit. When you're closing transactions, you can afford to spend some more money on marketing, and now people are calling you and it gets easier. Right? And in my coaching program, I'm willing to help you design one of these for yourself and how to put together a plan and implement the plan. And that's sort of what we do. I hope you found this interesting or something at least. If so, send me money. I'll I take PayPal, Venmo, whatever. Or if you're interested in talking about how you might make more money in real estate through coaching, planning, training, and all that sort of stuff, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. That's all I got. Next Thursday, we're not having a class. I'm not sure why. I can't really remember why. There was a reason, but we're taking next Thursday off. And that's the week after that, we will start up again. Have a great weekend. Bye, you guys. Go. No.